Good evening, I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
The big stories tonight. Metro Manila workers are getting a raise soon, but there's another push to make the pay increase across the board. The legislated wage hike bill has been refiled in Congress with hopes it will finally pass after a wait of almost 40 years.
Now, speaking of optimism, the newly opened 20th Congress wants to do better by the national budget. That's after the last spending plan drafted by the lower and upper chambers got marred by allegations of illegal insertions.
And Pasig City Mayor Vico Sotto has revealed his plans for the 2028 elections. He also extends a hand of peace and at the same time, a warning to political rivals and critics.
Beginning July 18, Metro Manila's minimum wage earners are getting a raise in their pay. That's 50 pesos per day as approved by the NCR Regional Tripartite Wages and Productivity Board. The Wage Board touts this as the highest minimum wage hike they have ever given. The adjustment brings the daily pay to 695 from 645 for workers in the non-agriculture sector. It's 658 pesos from the current 608 pesos for those in agriculture, service, and retail establishments employing 15 or fewer workers and workers of manufacturing companies that regularly employ less than 10 workers. In total, this is an additional monthly take-home pay of 1,100 pesos for those who work 5 days a week and 1,300 pesos for those on 6-day work weeks. Around 1.2 million workers stand to benefit from this wage increase.
But for several lawmakers, the wage hike is just a drop in the bucket and will not cover workers nationwide as proposed in the now dead legislated wage hike. On day one of the 20th Congress today, the party list arm of the Trade Union Congress of the Philippines, or TUCP, refiled the bill for a 200 peso per day increase in wages. The Makabayan bloc has also resubmitted its pitch for an increase of 1,200 pesos in the daily minimum wage. On the other hand, Ka-Manggagawa party list moved to amend the Wage Rationalization Act, or the Republic Act 6727. This is to allow an equal minimum wage for Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao to pave the way for the banning of contractualization. Other measures pushed at the opening of the 20th Congress were House Bill No. 1, or the Rice Industry and Consumer Empowerment Act. This aims to restore the regulatory powers of the National Food Authority on the staple to fight hoarding and surges in rice prices. There's also the refiled absolute divorce and anti-political dynasty bills and a law that would mandate a 1,000 monthly allowance for public and private school students from kindergarten to college.
And at this point, let's bring in Carlos Miguel Onyate, Legislative Officer of the Party List arm of the Trade Union Congress of the Philippines, or TUCP. This is regarding the 200 peso daily minimum wage hike bill they have refiled in the 20th Congress. Magandang gabi po sa inyo, Congressman, and welcome to the Big Story.
Hi, Carlo po, spokesman and legislative officer of the TUCP party list. Marami pong salamat sa opportunity. Good evening, Ces, Shawn, and Pauline, and to all our viewers.
Thank you. Well, this is short of the 200 peso legislated wage hike that is now has been filed before Congress, but at least may break naman po yung minimum wage earners natin.
Tama po kayo, no? Pero the TUCP party list just today filed once again the legislated 200 peso wage increase because we believe that our workers, hindi pwede silang tinutulak na 50 na lang kesa wala, no? May mas malaki pong pag-asa dito po sa House of Representatives. The TUCP party list not only filed the 200 peso legislated wage increase, but we also filed a resolution calling for an inquiry, an investigation in aid of legislation on how our regional wage boards really set minimum wages, because as of now, we have over 5 million minimum wage earners who are still below the poverty line. And as you've mentioned, this NCR regional minimum wage will only cover 1.2 million minimum wage earners and not yet the entire 5 million minimum wage earners.
Do you intend to look also at the work of these wage boards apart from this, legislated wage increase? Yung trabaho ng wage boards, they have not been responsive.
That's correct. If you would go back, these regional wage boards were created by RA 6727, the Wage Rationalization Act, which actually outlined 10 criteria which the regional wage boards should be using in setting minimum wages. The number one criteria there is the demand for a living wage, which is enshrined in the Constitution. Yet, if you look at the latest wage order, even if balik-baliktarin mo itong wage order, ni isang mention ng living wage hindi nabanggit. We have estimate of living wage right now is 1,200. Still, we have BARM with the lowest at 361, and now the new NCR minimum wage 695, which is still no way near the 1,200 living wage estimate, and which was the vision when the regional wage boards were created 36 long years ago.
So, what amendments will you put in place so that the regional wage boards will be more responsive?
Yes, as I've mentioned, we are looking forward to actually investigating the functioning of the regional wage boards. We note, number one is that while this is tripartite in composition, you have government, employer, and then worker. More often than not, it's the government ganging up with the employers for a lower figure for a wage increase, thereby leaving the workers' representative with a dissent or with reservation in the decision. Secondly is the fact that why is it that we have poorer regions who have lower minimum wages, and still we say to them that let's just keep the minimum wage at that level so that investors will come in. Investors never came into those regions, and in fact, mas naging mahirap pa yung mga regions na yon. Pangatlo, meron ding proposals which we are very seriously considering. Number one is just to abolish the regional wage boards and just go back to the national minimum wage system, which was the system before the regional wage boards were created. And secondly, why don't we shift to industrial wage boards, wherein you have industries that are recording so much growth and therefore can pay a higher minimum wage, and then you have other industries which can set their minimum wage. But the bottom line is that the minimum wage that we should be setting should always be a step closer to the living wage. But now, because of inflation, because of how the rising prices have already overtaken the increases given by the wage boards, we are going farther and farther from the living wage.
Okay, Carlo, if we look at it from the other side of the coin, though, of course, maraming mga MSMEs, which make up a bulk of the businesses here, they're always saying baka hindi na sila makapag-hire more, or they might have to let some people go para lang mabigyan yung iba nitong wage hike, that so far is just at 50 pesos for minimum wage earners. What is your plan for those that might be displaced by this wage hike? And also, lalo na kung mag-come to pass yung 200 or 100 na legislated.
Yes, the TUCP party list filed, actually it's now House Bill number 88, one of the first legislation now, day one of the 20th Congress. It actually includes a provision wherein for small businesses, the Department of Labor and Employment should come up with incentives so that we can aid their wage compliance. Secondly, we also articulated in the bill that there are existing exemptions actually now enjoyed by our barangay micro business enterprises. They are automatically exempted from the minimum wage increase. And thirdly, as we have stated, the 19th Congress legislated wage increase, which unfortunately did not become a law, actually went through almost 3 years of deliberations in the House and in the Senate, wherein you have Ibon Foundation actually estimating that the cost of a 200 peso wage increase is only 9 to 15% of the annual profit of our businesses across from micro down to the large. So we believe that this 200 peso wage increase is actually doable. It is actually a win-win for all our businesses, workers, as well as our economy.
Well, Carlo, alam naman natin matagal na talagang isinusulong itong wage hike. Kaya marami na rin nagdududa kung maipapasa ba talaga ito. And some even think that the only reason this is being pushed now, it's being talked about now, is mag-eleksyon na rin come 2028. It's the national presidential elections. Do you think this is just being used as a campaign tool, a campaign promise?
I do not believe in that because, as you know, for instance, TUCP party list has been there for the longest time fighting for a legislated wage increase before, during, and after elections. What is clear to us, especially with the May 2025 Social Weather Station survey, is that it shows you that over 90% of the respondents there actually want the Senate and the House to prioritize the legislated wage increase. And that we would like to believe that the hundreds of them who voted back in the 19th Congress, both the Senate and the House, and who committed and who actually passed it in both their chambers, will once again follow through this 20th Congress. Because this is actually to prove that indeed, they did not just pass the legislated wage increase for the 2025 elections then. We are willing and we are planning to pass this legislated wage increase, and we call on all our allies and champions. Actually, they are getting more now in the 20th Congress to actually co-author and then to actually pass the legislated wage increase, not in the last 2 minutes of the 20th Congress, but in the first session days of the 20th Congress.
Oo nga, baka mag-antay ng ilang taon yung towards adjournment na naman. My question is, what do you think, is this going to be included in the president's, agenda when he presents his State of the Nation address? And secondly, the economic managers have warned against a 200 peso legislated wage hike. So, anong tansya mo? Masasali ba to sa legislative agenda ni PBBM?
Si Palace Press Officer Yusek Claire Castro na rin ang nagsabi mismo that the President is not against a wage hike because it will benefit workers. But we would just like to remind the President and this administration that the wage hike and then the only lifeline for our workers to actually get a substantial wage increase is from Congress and never from the regional wage boards. 36 years is too much just to keep on insisting on this epic failed, broken system. We urge the President to actually mention and recognize this in the State of the Nation address. Actually, our call is that this should be included not only in the LEDAC priority bills, but also in the certification as urgent of the President. And then we once again warn and urge our economic managers to stop the scaremongering because this is being used also by our employers. Unfortunately, those who are in big corporations who actually have the means to actually pay for a legislated wage increase. And hindi na ba tayo nasanay, no? 36 years, no? Almost 4 decades, lagi sinasabi magkakasarahan, magkakawalaan ng trabaho. Ni isang beses po, hindi po yan nangyari kahit po nung huling legislated wage increase noong 1989. Ang bottom line po, no, kung ayaw lang po nila ng legislated wage increase, yun po ay dahil ayaw po nilang i-share yung portion ng kanilang profits.
Carlo, actually, yan yung gusto ko itanong sa'yo, no? Nabanggit mo yung malalaking korporasyon. While there's no doubt na mas afford nila, no? Ang problema doon, karamihan ng mga empleyado nila ay contractual na. Will this legislated wage hike apply to the contractuals? Kasi marami nang nagfo-fall under that sector ngayon. Or what do you propose to do with, yung burgeoning number of contractual employees?
Opo, no, buti na banggit din po. No? Number one, this is a minimum wage increase bill. So this means that all minimum wages across the country should be increased by 200 pesos, regardless if you are regular or contractual. Secondly, we want to address the root of the problem, which is actually rampant contractualization. So we actually, the TUCP party list, once again filed the security of tenure bill, which will finally prohibit labor-only contracting, which is long prohibited by the labor code. And we seek to restore regular direct employment as the norm rather than the exception as it is today. We remember, of course, during the time of President Duterte, this was already passed by both the Senate and the House, but unfortunately vetoed. Once again, we are urging, no less than the President, to make this also his legacy, security of tenure and the legislated wage increase.
Also explain the rationale of having a nationwide rate. No? As it stands, iba-iba nga ang minimum wage rate. Kasi iba-iba, supposedly, ang cost of living depending on where you are. So why legislate an across the board? Why one amount?
Yes, the legislated wage increase is actually just the first step towards reforming the system itself. As it is now, we have BARM, which is at 361 pesos. And then you can have now next the new NCR, which is the highest, which is at 695 pesos. This is actually, for us, a product of the epic fail system of the regional wage boards. If you would remember, back in 1989, all minimum wages across the regions are all 89 pesos. So para silang nagkarera, lubusan pong naiwan yung mga regions outside of the national capital region. The end result is that most are still flocking to either NCR or either metropolitan areas just to get employment, and then afterwards, uuwi na naman po sila. No? So it brings congestion, and second, napipigilan yung inclusive growth.
But would you acknowledge that that was what led to the growth of Calabarzon, for instance?
That is very hard to account whether the lower minimum wages. For instance, you mentioned Calabarzon. Calabarzon, of course, being a region, not only has one minimum wages. Actually, they even slice the areas of Calabarzon with different minimum wages. And then there are areas in Calabarzon wherein you will just take 10 steps, then NCR, it would be a whole new rate. So we believe that it is through investing in our workforce, but that through upskilling and reskilling, that is actually the driver of growth of our regions, and not necessarily paying them a lower minimum wage so that investors will come in, because investors are not after actually lower wages, but actually more competent, quality workforce.
Well, Carlo, there was also that bill filed mandating sick leaves, vacation leaves, because apparently it's not under the labor code. So how feasible is it to finally mandate vacation leaves for employees?
Actually, we welcome all those measures, actually institutionalizing what are the contents of collective bargaining agreements, because as of now, unfortunately, we have only 5% of our workers who actually have a union, and then much, much lower who are covered by a collective bargaining agreement, because unfortunately, the Philippines remain among the worst countries for workers according to the International Trade Union Confederation. So these bills are very important because they institutionalize what is already included in those workers that are already covered by a collective bargaining agreement. Through a legislation, we hope that this will also increase union density and the capacity of our workers to enter into collective bargaining agreements with their employers. And the enabling environment for that should be the free exercise of workers' right to organize, collectively bargain, and freedom of association.
And Carlo, balikan ko lang yung contractualization, because one of the reasons why it's so rampant is also because of manpower agencies. What should be done about these agencies? Should they be regulated? Nabanggit mo nga yung security of tenure ang mahalaga to push for employees, workers to have that security. But what about these manpower agencies?
We have always called for intensified labor inspection. Unfortunately, as of now, the DOLE only has around over 1,000 inspectors, and then we have over 1 million establishments. So the labor inspection is something that should be taken serious about by this government. Secondly, is that in our bill, in the security of tenure bill, we actually want to get rid of manpower agencies, because manpower agencies, especially the many who are illegitimate, the only job that they will do is to hire worker and then deploy them to another company. More often than not, the manpower agency actually serves just like as a middleman, or in one way or another, just like a puppet of the principal employer, just to evade employer obligations. So in our security of tenure bill, we actually, first, we want to regulate them. Second, is we want to prohibit, especially the many who are still operating right now, who are illegitimate manpower agencies.
Okay, balikan natin yung issue with the economic managers and the legislating wage hikes in general. Ano yung mechanism ninyo, since you are pro-labor, of course, but how do you account for rising inflation that could actually negate these raises that they get in their minimum wage?
That is very much true. No, when we first filed the legislated wage increase, which was 150 pesos, we called it then as a wage recovery increase, because it is not actually an increase, but you just want to recover the lost purchasing power. That's why in 2025, when the House approved it in the 19th Congress, a 200 peso wage increase adjusted for inflation. Now, the struggle continues in the 20th Congress. Before, the last legislated wage increase is actually 25 pesos in 1989. The value of the 25 pesos now is already 170 pesos. So we believe that the 200 pesos legislated wage increase can recover the lost purchasing power, which is we are talking about in terms of real wages. And second, that it can be done and it can be absorbed by our economy, especially now that we have relatively lower inflation compared to 4 decades ago.
Going to the passage of this measure, what went wrong in the 19th Congress? Yung nagtuturuan ng Senate at House kung ano ba nangyari, and how can you avoid this from happening again?
Number one na ginagawa namin to avoid that is actually filing it on day one rather than waiting until the last weeks of Congress just to pass it. Secondly is that we have more allies inside and outside of the House and of the Senate now, because there are also many party lists who won that is willing to fight for progressive causes. And number three, with regards dun sa turuan na naganap dun sa last 2 minutes ng 19th Congress, I think we are now establishing better relations with both the chairman of the Committee on Labor and Employment. So for the Senate, I think it's still Senator Joel Villanueva. In the House, it will be a new committee chairman. In the House of Representatives, new chairman of the Committee on Labor and Employment. Naghihintay pa rin po kami, kasi magkaka-election pa lamang yan after ng SONA. So we hope that we can have a more proactive, more close relationship between the chairmen of the Committee on Labor and Employment of both the Senate and the House, so that we can immediately come up with a Bicam and not let this historic moment slip.
Who's your ideal chairman, Carlo? From the
wala pa kaming babanggiting pangalan, basta ang gusto namin sana yung ating magiging chairman is also one of the principal authors of the 200 peso wage increase, para nandun yung puso niya dun sa bill, nandun yung puso niya para dun sa Committee on Labor. Actually, banggitin ko lang rin, we are also calling on both the yung mga comebacking and then the newcomers sa 19th Congress in the House of Representatives to please co-author with the 200 peso legislated wage increase. So sana makaabot tayo ng 200 lawmakers for the 200 peso wage increase to ensure its swift passage.
I couldn't help but notice number 88, tama?
Yes po, ma'am. Yes po,
So
ma'am.
naniniwala kayo sa
88.
feng shui? Ganun ba? Talagang inabangan nyo yung 88 na yon?
Sana po swertihin kami kasi yung aming opisina pumila starting 4 o'clock right now today sa House of Representatives, just to get a priority dito sa pagpila sa House of Representatives. So hopefully yung feng shui na binabanggit ni Ma'am Ces talagang maging batas itong 200 pesos legislated
parang
wage increase.
Anong number nung contractualization?
Yung security of tenure, ma'am, medyo dulo Medyo dulo kasi mas may iba pang nakapila.
Quick clarification lang, Carlo. Since nagsalita na nga yung wage board, with the 50 pesos, at least alam naman natin na hindi siya across the board. Pero bukod pa ito sa usapan ng legislated wage hike. So kung ano man yung numero or yung amount na ilalagay ninyo sa 20th Congress na bill, bukod pa to dun sa 50.
Tama po kayo, The legislated wage increase is on top of what the regional wage boards will provide. Secondly, the legislated wage increase does not preclude the regional wage boards from giving an increase. So the legislated wage increase does not abolish, but actually it's a first step. If you come to think about it, if it is already Congress that is increasing wages, which it originally delegated to the regional wage boards, then definitely may something na palpak na ginagawa yung ating regional wage boards. Kaya kailangan ng manghimasok ng House of Representatives at ng Senado sa wage setting.
All right. Well, I remember when that was passed, yung regional wage boards, there was so much hope in them. Pero that was what? 20 years ago ba?
The regional wage boards were created in 1989. Actually, kaya good news sa maraming workers yon kasi dinikit yung 25 pesos na legislated wage increase. Then dinikit na it would be the legislated wage increase from Congress, provided that the regional wage boards will be established. Unfortunately, as everyone, both layman and our experts will say, it led to the stagnation of minimum wages. If you would look at real wage terms, the current minimum wages, some of them in regions with lower minimum wages are even far below its purchasing power compared way back in 1989.
All right, we thank you for joining us. Carlo Onyate, Legislative Officer and Spokesperson of the TUCP Party List.
We're just going to take a quick break, but coming up, does Cheese Escudero still have the numbers to keep the Senate presidency in the 20th Congress? Well, his colleagues think so. The details of that when the big story returns. Keep it here.
Welcome back to the big story. Majority of Filipinos are in favor of the Philippines rejoining the International Criminal Court. That's according to the results of an Octa research survey released earlier today. The Tugon ng Masa survey conducted from April 20 to 24 shows that 57% of Filipinos support rejoining the ICC. Meanwhile, 37% are against it and 6% remain undecided. Support is strongest in Metro Manila, Balance Luzon, and the Visayas, where at least 60% of respondents back the idea. Mindanao, however, is a clear outlier with only 30% in favor and 66% oppose rejoining, the highest rate of opposition nationwide. Across age groups and socio-economic classes, at least half of respondents are open to returning to the fold of the ICC. By age, resistance is most notable among adults, age 18 to 24, 35 to 44, and 45 to 54 years old. The Philippines withdrew from the ICC in 2019 after the court launched a probe into former President Duterte's controversial war on drugs. When asked in March about possibly rejoining, President Marcos only smiled and said the matter had not been discussed, following Duterte's arrest and detention in the Netherlands on charges of crimes against humanity. But in a more recent statement, Palace Press Officer Undersecretary Claire Castro said the president is open to discussing the country's return to that tribunal.
Meanwhile, Senate President Francis Escudero will continue to lead the upper chamber of the 20th Congress. That's if the Senate will vote for its leader today. Senators Joel Villanueva and Alan Peter Cayetano say that Escudero continues to have the numbers to keep the presidency or Senate presidency, more than half of what's needed, that is according to the two senators. Right now, former Senate President Tito Sotto is seen as the one to challenge Escudero for the Senate leadership. But this, Sotto says, will be up to his colleagues who will eventually pick their leader. Sotto, however, remains open to serve as Senate Minority Leader should he lose to Escudero.
Kung ngayon nga po ang botohan, alam na natin na I think your information is as good as mine na si Senate President Ces Escudero will be retained as our Senate President. I know for a fact na maraming akong nakausap din na senador, and just like the majority of the members of the incoming 20th Congress, I am also in support of the current Senate President. Basically, if you look at his accomplishments, I've known him for quite a long time.
Alam mo kasi pag minority leader ka, kailangan lahat ng batas na pag-uusapan, lahat ng resolusyon at lahat ng bagay na pag-uusapan sa Senado ay alam mo. At kailangan kay panghimasukan mo. So, handang-handa ako. In case na ako'y hindi ihalal ng ating aming mga kasama, handa naman ako mahalal as minority leader.
Now, still in the Senate, the upper chamber has expressed openness to making bicameral conference committee deliberations more transparent. This follows House Speaker Martin Romualdez' call to open the sessions to the public in a bid to institutionalize a more accountable budget process. In a statement, Senator Amy Marcos says she supports transparency in budget deliberations as long as it does not compromise Congress's power of the purse. She also urged the incoming Congress to thoroughly scrutinize the proposed 2026 budget and commit to greater openness throughout the process. Meanwhile, Senator Ping Lacson echoed this, saying he has long pushed for making Bicam meetings on the national budget open to the public or at least accessible to accredited NGOs, CSOs, and the media. He revealed that one of his priority bills this Congress will seek to formalize transparency in the budget Bicam, and he hopes the House will file a counterpart measure. Senate President pro tempore Jinggoy Estrada also expressed support, saying he is not opposed to efforts that promote transparency and public trust. He emphasized that the General Appropriations Act is an important piece of legislation that requires public participation, as Filipinos are its ultimate beneficiaries. However, in an interview on One News Historicon, former Finance Secretary Shelo Magno said Bicam meetings often involve sensitive discussions, including potential horse trading, which the public rarely sees. With this, she stressed the importance of giving the public access to comprehensive meeting records, especially since Bicam sessions reconcile different versions of the budget from the House and the Senate.
Ang ina-expect po sana natin ay very concrete action from both houses of Congress na i-reflect itong open Bicam in their House rules. Kasi ang ina-expect po natin dito yung hindi yung token open Bicam lang. If we remember last year, sabi nila they will open the Bicam of the budget deliberation. So they opened it during the opening of the Bicam. The media, members of the media were there. Civil society members were there. Pero nag-opening lang sila. When they finalized the Bicam budget, wala na.
Correct.
It's just a small group of individual senators and congressmen who finalized. And then all of a sudden, ang dami na uling insertion.
Well, fresh from taking his oath as Senator of the 20th Congress, joining us on the Big Story tonight is Senator Tito Sotto. Good evening, Tito Sen.
Hi, good evening, Ces, Shawn, and Pauline. Good evening, magandang gabi po sa inyo lahat.
Well, first of all, we had Senator Villanueva saying that natahina ni Senate President Chis Escudero ang support ng majority ng senators.
Napahina? What
He's already sealed the deal. Kumbaga, he will stay on as Senate President.
Congratulations. Good luck. We'll see you in July 28.
All right. Well, we know that you are vying for the post also. So, ano yung...
No, I'm not vying for
Okay.
it. My colleagues are the ones asking me to accept it if they can get the numbers.
Okay.
That's the score. I am not like the others. I am like the old timers eh. Old school ako eh. Old school kami nila Manong Johnny, nila Senator Maceda. Hindi namin hinahabol yun. Iaalok sa amin, tatanggapin namin.
Okay.
Yung iba, nagpapapirma, nag-aalok. Sila yun.
Baka masyadong maaga nila na telegraph ang kanilang numero.
Well, depende. Nasa sa kanila. Importante naman sa Senado is yung senador eh. Whether you're the Senate President, you're the Majority Leader, or you're the Minority Leader, or you're just a simple member of the Senate. The important thing is that you know the rules, you know the procedures, and you know how to handle it. And there's no problem. I don't see any problem at all. The important thing is that They all remember and they all think that there are 24 different republics. Yung ika nga'y Senate President, presiding officer lang yun. Yun ang ating mga ika nga madalas na kinokorek namin na ang Senate is not the Senate President. It is the Senate. So you don't speak for the Senate unless you conduct a caucus or you talk to your colleagues. Hindi pwedeng ikaw lang nagsasalita. Ganon lang yun eh. So we will know what to do.
We want to hear your thoughts on whether the Senate impeachment trial can begin now, even before July 28. Senator Risa Ontiveros said earlier, because the impeachment court is a continuing body and you can convene as early as now. Ano pong masasabi niyo?
That will be something to discuss among us. I think there must be a caucus that should be called by the current Senate President, because he is currently the Senate President in the 19th Congress, and they are carried over into the 20th Congress. So there must be a caucus, and we should discuss it, because there could be some intricacies on the fact that the 12 new, the 12 new have not been included in the constitution of the impeachment court. So that is one thing to discuss first, no?
Otherwise, in fact, urging, Senator, if I may interrupt you, Senator Ontiveros is urging that the new senators, kayo bagong luma, no? To take their oath as senator judges.
Pwede, why not? If it's legally possible, if it's tenable, we can do that. But kasi July 28 yung yung convening
Yes.
So we will have to look into that. This is going to be the first time that it will happen. It has never happened before. There is no records that will show that the new set as far as July 1st is concerned, or the 12 noon of June 30, like tonight, pwede nang mag-convene before the July 28 call. There has been no precedent. So we will have to look into that. I do not disagree. In fact, kaya lang, sabi ko nga, there must be some legal basis for it.
Okay, so as far as you know, and syempre wala pa talaga nag-i-invite na mag-meet kahit na siguro fellowship dinner or something before the 28th.
Walang nag-imbita. I don't expect it because in the last year, they have never had a caucus.
Oo nga, hindi daw ganun ang style ni Senate President Cheese, Tito Sen.
Yun ang complaint sa akin ng mga incumbent senators. Unlike when I was Senate President for 4.5 years, we had a caucus weekly so that I know what my colleagues are thinking and what they want me to say and what they stand for. Kailangan yun, weekly ang caucus kung tutuusin. But di ba iba style ng current Senate President
Okay, Tito Sen, I just wanted to get your thoughts, no? How much of an influence or does the impeachment trial, you think, has to do with who gets to be Senate President? Kasi parang may ganun po ba? Like, may influensya ba tong impeachment court kung sino yung magiging presiding officer / Senate President?
I don't know. I don't think so. I cannot answer it directly. I'll have to talk off my hat by saying that whether the impeachment is there or not, the important thing is that somebody gets 13 votes. 13 votes supporting him or her. Yun ang importante. So it doesn't matter if it's connected to the impeachment or what. No, I don't think so. I don't believe so.
Okay, fair enough.
But Tito Sen, nauna naman pong sinabi rin ni SP Cheese Escudero that in the Senate, plenary is supreme. He even cited that as an impeachment court, kumbaga they also have blanket authority to really try and decide an impeachment trial. What happens, Tito Sen, pagdating ng 20th Congress at may mag-move po to dismiss this impeachment complaint?
I disagree. The Constitution is supreme, not the Senate or not the impeachment court. So the impeachment court must follow the Constitution.
And Tito Sen, there are talks of you leading the minority camp. Posible po ba talaga yon, Tito Sen?
Yeah, that's possible. If we're not going to vote for who the 13 members of the Senate would vote as Senate President, those who will not vote for that particular senator automatically becomes members of the other side or the other fence, and that the other fence is the minority. So whether you would like to call yourself an independent bloc or macho bloc or whatever it is, as long as you don't vote for the Senate President, you are not member of the majority, you are automatically a member of the minority. And I'm ready to be a member of the minority. I have no problem at all. As a matter of fact, that will be a second or third chance for me to be so, because I was minority leader during the time of Senator Drilon.
Pero no one's approached you pa rin about being or leading the minority, Tito Sen?
Wala naman, wala pa. Kaming mga grupo-grupo, nag-uusap lang kami that if we don't get it, if they do not get the required number of votes, we might end up in the minority. Napapag-usapan lang. Maganda na rin yun sapagkat then we can try to straighten out issues, things that have been not doing well in the last year or so. Kaya maganda na rin siguro yun.
You know, Tito Sen, a controversy last year when the budget was being deliberated on was all these insertions that were not bared to the public. And now,
Yes.
what is your stand when it comes to the Bicam? Are you willing that this also be made public?
Yes, as a matter of fact, one of the first bills that I'm filing is the FOI. And now but let me just recall the fact that for 4.5 years I was Senate President. There was never a controversy as far as the budget is concerned, because my chairman of Committee on Finance, Senator Angara, was very open. Sani Angara, he was very open, and I made sure that anybody can all the vice chairman or anyone who would want to attend the bicameral conference committee can do so. Kaya walang problema kami for 4.5 years. Itong nangyari itong last year na to, talagang dapat magalit ng tao sapagkat hindi lang closed door kung ano pa ang nangyari. And siguro the proper time, maybe August or September, we'll be able to thresh it out and come out into the open about what really happened there.
Okay, and Tito Sen, related to that question of Ces, no, some lawmakers are saying dapat i-legislate na itong transparency sa Bicam para hindi na pabago-bago, no, kung sino lang yung nakaupo dyan, sino yung chairman, kung open siya or hindi. Ano yung thoughts niyo about, yun nga, legislating transparency in the Bicam?
Very good, perfect. Eksakto yun doon sa FOI bill ko. Because the Freedom of Information Bill will include that. We can include that. Bakit itatago? Pera ng taong bayan yun. Bakit itatago at mag-uusap 2-3 tao lang? Hindi pwede yun. Ano, yung small body na tinatawag nung araw sa amin, hindi pa pwedeng yung chairman lang ng finance at saka yung chairman lang ng appropriations ang mag-uusap. Ano, and much more, lalo nang hindi pwedeng yung Senate President lang at saka yung chairman ng appropriations lang ang nag-uusap. Hindi pwede yun. Kailangan yun yung ibang members, yung ibang vice chairman, kahit na tinatawag nilang small Bicam kung tawagin. Dahil yung main Bicam, mga easily about 20-25 members of the House, and then in the Senate around 7 or 8. So they would want it to be medyo babawasan ng konti. So there would, usually when I was Senate President, there would be about 5 from the House of Representatives and about 3 or 4 from the Senate. And it is not really closed door. At kung sakali mang meron sila na pag-uusapan na hindi nakakarating sa publiko, I always make sure that when Sani Angara reports it on the floor, he reports it point by point, what happened, what transpired, what is different from what we passed, and gano'n. Hindi katulad nitong nangyari nitong nakaraan, talagang magagalit ang taong bayan, lalo na pag nalaman nila kung ano nangyari.
Bukod po sa FOI, what are your other priority bills?
I'm amending the Dangerous Drugs Act, and I'm transforming the PDEA into a Presidential Drug Enforcement Authority, which will be including the Dangerous Drugs Board already, and heavy concentration on prevention and rehabilitation, which is napabayaan, especially during the last 9 years. Ano? So yun ang isa sa mga halaga na nakita ko, napag-aralan ko na yun eh. Even the time that I was not in the Senate, yun ang nakita kong solusyon eh. So that's also one of the bills that I'm filing. And then the 14-month pay, because yung 13-month pay, 1975 pa yun eh. Yung batas na yun eh. It's a presidential decree by the old President Marcos, the first President Marcos. So ito naman, kailangan to sa bandang middle of the June, dapat bibigay natin yung 14-month pay na tinatawag, or we can call it the 13-month pay, reverse. Sapagkat yun yung kailangan ng tulong ng mga pagbili ng libro, pang matrikula, pang tuition, yung mga ganun.
Are you for a legislated wage hike? That was not passed in the 19th Congress. The Senate wanted 100. The House now just has a bill pending, just filed, na mainit-init pa, 200 pesos naman po. What is your thinking?
I am inclined to support, but we must be able to first get the sentiments of the business community and explain to them and find out more or less how we can arrive at a middle ground. Kasi yun ang unang mawapalag eh, yung business community.
And finally, Tito Sen, earlier during your oath-taking, sinabi niyo po that this could possibly be your last term kasi pagdating ng 2031, baka mawalan na daw po kayo ng drive. With that, Tito Sen, is this your final term in Senate or talaga magre-retiro na rin po kayo from public service?
Basta, most probably, yun ang usapan namin ni Senator Lacson eh. Sabi namin, no, by the time na natapos tayo ng term na to, pareho na tayo 83 years old, teka muna. Itong last 6 years natin eh, kung matinuman ang ating performance ng mga nakaraang taon, itong last 6 years na ito, kamikasi na tayo. Talagang itodo na natin. Itodo na natin to. Masagasaan ang kung sino masasagasaan, mabisto kung sino mabibisto. Wala kaming pakialam dahil hindi naman kami magre-re-election. Ilalabas namin lahat sa taong bayan kung ano mga nakikita namin nangyayari.
Parang bagay po kayong minority leader.
Ay, dati ako minority leader during the time of President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. Nung si Frank Trillo ang Senate President. And si Nene Pimentel originally was minority leader, but after a month, binigay na niya sa akin and I was tasked to do that. So, kabisado ko yung trabaho na yun at nakahanda naman akong interpellating lahat ng ilalagay nila sa floor.
All right, we look forward to hearing your voice when the 20th Congress convenes. That was Senator Tito Sotto. Thank you so much, Tito Sen.
Meantime, newly elected officials across the country are officially stepping into office as cities begin holding turnover ceremonies. In Manila, Isko Moreno officially returned to his post as mayor at around noon today. In a press conference, Isko Moreno announced plans to declare a state of emergency in the city due to the worsening garbage situation. Meanwhile, outgoing Mayor Honey Lacuna, once a former ally of Moreno, led her final flag-raising ceremony at Manila City Hall. Though stepping down, Lacuna says she is still willing to help the city in any way she can. Over in Cebu, Governor Pam Baricuatro marked her first day with a series of activities at the capital. Notably absent during the event was outgoing Governor Gwen Garcia. Only outgoing Vice Governor Hilario Davide III and incoming Vice Governor Glenn Soco were present for the turnover. This afternoon, Baricuatro met with department heads and made the rounds across the Capitol building to visit various offices and familiarize herself with operations. And in Pasig City, Vico Sotto officially took oath as he begins his third and final term as mayor. Joining him at the ceremony were his parents, Vic Sotto and Connie Reyes, along with fellow Giting ng Pasig candidates who also secured victories in the midterm elections. In his speech, Sotto confirmed he will not run in 2028. He also called for unity among political rivals, but clarified that this does not mean turning a blind eye on past wrongdoings.
Pagka political season, mahirap magsalita kasi sabihin politika lang yan. Ngayon, wala nang politika. 2028, hindi ako tatakbo. Ngayon pa lang, sinasabi ko na sa inyo. Sa lahat ng aming katunggali, we extend a hand of peace, we extend a hand of unity. Kung maaari, magtulungan tayo para sa ikagaganda ng ating lungsod. Ngunit, kailangan may managot sa mga krimen na naganap. Yung bilyon-bilyong piso ng buwis na utang ninyo sa nasyonal at lokal na pamahalaan, bayaran ninyo. Di po ako galit. Nagpapaliwanag lang.
We're pausing for another quick break, but when we return, Justice Secretary Boying Remulia sets his sights on another post. He wants to replace outgoing Ombudsman Samuel Martz. The details when we return. Keep it here.
You're watching The Big Story here on One News. Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Remulia is leaving the DOJ. Well, that's if he gets picked as the next ombudsman. Remulia confirmed interest in the post that will be vacated by Samuel Martz. Martz, a Duterte appointee, will see his term expire on July 27. The ombudsman serves a fixed term of 7 years without reappointment. The Office of the Ombudsman handles the complaints filed against high-ranking government officials and those occupying supervisory positions. Complaints range from grave offenses to offenses involving large sums of money and or properties. Recently, Senator Amy Marcos filed a case against Remulia and government officials before the Ombudsman over the arrest of former President Rodrigo Duterte.
Mag-a-apply pa lang ako. I'm submitting my application by Friday, before Friday.
Bakit, sir?
Wala. I think that I have a lot to offer there. I have to talk to the JBC about it first. I think the JBC is in the best position to appreciate whatever I have to offer for as ombudsman. I think that we're solidly organized here, and it can stand on its own if the succession is okay.
Meanwhile, on the case of the missing Sabongeros, Remulia says they're still validating the information given up by whistleblower alias Totoy. This includes personalities involved or linked to the case, including one female celebrity. Alias Totoy has submitted his statement to the DOJ, and for his part, Remulia assured government would leave no stone unturned in building up the case against those allegedly involved.
Meron akong nabasang statement. I don't know if it's an affidavit, parang hindi pa siya fully sworn. Wala akong nakitang pirma sa nabasa ko. But he must probably have one already. Kailangan gawin ng police pa na verification and validation of data.
On a lighter note, Signal has officially launched its vertical content lineup with Signal Play Microdrama, a new collection of short-form, mobile-first series. The microdramas, which premiered on June 28, are designed for vertical viewing and feature episodes under 5 minutes. Titles include originals like I See You with Dimples Romana, My Father's Last Wish with Dylan Menor, and Three Queens and a Baby starring Christian Bables. Signal has also teamed up with Dashflix to expand its lineup with international vertical content. MediaQuest and Signal President and CEO Jane Jimenez Basas called the launch a big step in delivering fresh, mobile-ready Filipino stories. Viewers can stream the first 5 episodes for free with full access at 20 pesos per day via Signal Play.
And for our big picture tonight, Filipina tennis ace Alex Ayala has climbed to a career-high world number 56 in the latest WTA rankings. The 20-year-old rose 18 spots after a breakout run at the 2025 Lexus Eastbourne Open, where she finished as runner-up. Ayala fought her way from the qualifying rounds to her first ever WTA final, upsetting several higher-ranked opponents along the way. Ayala's previous best ranking was world number 69 back in May. Now she heads to Wimbledon, where she's set for a first-round clash against defending champion Barbora Krejcikova. Okay, congratulations to Alex.
I know. It was so exciting.
Yeah.
She's leapfrogging to the top, no? Parang ganon.
Skipping yung rankings, no? Lots of numbers.
Lots of numbers.
In the rank.
Galing. But hey, I'm interested in that vertical storytelling, telenovela, microdrama.
Microdrama. Pero siguro sa atin, hindi drama. Micro-news.
Micro-news?
Micro-headlines.
Pwede. Micro-reports.
Micro-reports.
Parang may naiisip ako. Anyway.
Okay. Kasi deadline mo na daw. Mamaya, gagawin yung first. Perfect timing.
All right, and that's it for the big story this Monday evening. Thank you so much for watching.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
We're back tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. We'll see you then. Have a good night, everyone.